we're up to the bottom of Yud Beis Amid Beis. We're up to the bottom of Yud Beis Amid Beis. Just to go over outside what we saw in the Mishnah and as a way means of introducing today's block. We saw that to Mata E Mavoy, Beis Shammai says you need a lechi and a kaira. Beis Hillel says oy lechi or kaira. Rabbi Eliezer says two lechin. A Talmud of Rabbi Shmuel said in front of Rabbi Akiva that it depends when the machloikis between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel takes place is above the width between 4 amas and 10 amas. If it's less than 4 amas, then even Beis Shammai is moda that either a lechi or a kaira will do the job. That's what the Talmud said in the name of Rabbi Shmuel in front of Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva reported that no, said Rabbi Akiva, there is no difference. The machlokas Beis Shammai Beis Hillel is across the board. It's even if it's more, it's less than 4 amas. That's where we're holding now. Says the Gemara.
What daf? I'm sorry.
We're on daf Yud Gimel at the top. Daf Yud Gimel Amid Aleph at the top. Okay. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Kiva al zevazel nechlu. There's no machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. There is no machlokes. Rabbi Kiva hainu tanakama. Pashtus, they both seem to be saying the same thing. That less than 4 amas, more than 4 amas, it's a machlokes across the board. Whether you need a lechi or a kaira, it doesn't make a difference. Even Beis Shammai would say that you still need what? A lechi or a kaira. So the Gemara says l'chayr Rabbi Akiva is saying no different than in Tanakama. And for the Gemara, however, we met Rabbi Achloi in the name of Rabbi Yechiel. He said yesterday, 4 amas up to 4 tfachim, then you would go ahead and need a lechi or kaira. Less than 4 amas, you would not need any. Less than 4 tfachim, you would not need anything. So that would be the machloikas, but we don't know who holds what. In other words, one of them will hold even less than 4 tfachim, you still need something, and one will hold you do not need something. And yesterday we said, in fact, that Rabbi Achloi is a machloikas tanoim, and that would be the machloikas tanoim. So again, just to reiterate, like Rabbi Akiva and like the Tanakama, Beis Shammai Beis Hillel across the board say, Beis Shammai says you need both, Beis Hillel says you need one or the other, either one. No matter whether it's 4 amas up till 10 amas, whether it's 4 amas, and now there's machlokes from that 4 amas by 4 tfachim. One madhyam will say even 4 tfachim would need, one madhyam would say it doesn't need anything. That's the machlokes between the Tanakama and Rabbi Akiva in the Shitas Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Tanya, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shmuel Davazeh, Eloisa Talmud. Rabbi Shmuel never said it, but this Talmud said it. And Malacha Kaisa Talmud, and said Rabbi Akiva, Allah is like that Talmud. Now, that's a very strange statement. He shows up the Talmud, he reports something in the name of Rabbi Shmuel, and Rabbi Akiva says, he never said that. But Allah is like you anyway. If he's saying he never said that, it means Allah is not like you. That says the Gemara. I'll go for kasha. Amit lo yom Rabbi Shmuel davazeh alma less halacha kavase that he doesn't hold like that. Rabbi Akiva said Rabbi Shmuel never said that. The Hadar in the same breath he says Amit halacha kaisa Talmud. The halacha is that in fact that below 4 there's no machlokes. Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel lo yom Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva did not say this el lechadei bo hatalmidim. We have it many times in Shas when I do it to you all the time, guys. I make a mistake that you should catch me, right? Of course, I never make mistakes. I'm perfect, right? The only reason I make a mistake is that you should correct me, right? So it's the chad talmidim to make sure you're listening. Good. Like if I'd say something like Whitey Ford was better than Sandy Koufax. The only one that would agree with that would be Penny Fisher because he wore pinstripes. So again, Mamela. But even Kenny Miller, who is the biggest Yankee fan in the world, it says it's kfira. He's sitting there saying, so why did I say it? L'chadid boyas to talmidim. And Chaim Klagsman is sitting there saying, why does he always being in sports? I hate sports. I know nothing about sports. He does this to me all the time. Okay? So again, it's l'chadid boyas to talmidim.
Then talk meat.
Excuse me?
Talk meat then. Talk about groceries or meat or something like that.
Avami Rhyme is, I see only black. He's probably out barbecuing. Anyway, the Chalapachis. Avami, where are you tonight? We see dark. Black Lives Matter. Look at Avrami Weiner, guys. Yeah.
On the way home from the Catskills.
On the way home. Okay, great. And you're listening to Torah. It's wonderful. Okay, guys, so, Geschmack.
Yes.
L'chadi boyes talmidim, says Rashi. Look at Rashi. Beautiful Rashi. Le'omer Rabbi Akiva lahai halacha koisei Talmud. Ela l'chadi res talmidim sheyasimu libim l'Torah. That they should go ahead and place their minds in Torah. V'yomru pilpul milibam lefikach shibcha v'fneim. In other words, you see, said Rabbi Akiva, the halacha could be like you. You could be a winner. You could be a player. You could be a keeper. You could be in it. So l'chadei boyes talmidim is different than all over. Look at Tosfos. L'chadei boyes talmidim ein lefarish kamay b'shar duchtei. It's not the same as normal. Leida im yedu leheshiv al dvarav, whether they know the right answer or not. The miyacha shomer shlayom Rabbi Shmuel davazeh meyolam hayudayim shlayomar ki im l'shvachai. All he again, he said Rabbi Shmuel never said it. So why he said halacha is like this Talmud? He wants to mishabech the Talmud. So again, very similar to Rashi. Tosfos says it's a little different over here. He wants to give credibility to the Talmidim to go ahead and enforce that in the future they shouldn't despair and just give and realize that you could be a player too. Says the Gemara Vaita. Again, very, very geschmack Gemara, guys. We're leaving. I know you're going to feel bad about this. We're leaving Lechi and Kairos and Pasim for. We're going to have to do Agarata. Again, we're going to have to force you, unless you want to chaza the first 10 blot in the Perik. We could do that too, but I'll force you to be Mitzvah Shabbos at 10:15 to learn some Geschmacka Agarata. Right? As Penny Fisher wakes up, says the Gemara. Nearing it, Mar. In other words, nearing, don't paskin, but Rabbi like that, but the halacha is like that. Amir Shuman Levi, listen to this. What did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah said that a certain Talmud said in the name of Rabbi Yishmael in front of Rabbi Akiva, we are looking for the identity of that Talmud. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon Levi, Kamakim Shata Maitzi Mishum Rabbi Yishmael, Amar Talmud Echad of Rabbi Akiva, Eina Ella, who is it? It's Reb Meir. It's the famous Reb Meir Balanes, the famous Meir from Gemara and Avodah Zarah. Reb Meir, the famous Reb Meir, the Lavlers. We're going to see the famous cipher. Sheshimis es Rabbi Yishmael ves Rabbi Akiva. He learned by both. Just like Rabbi Yehuda learned by Rabbi and Shmuel, the Tana Rabbi Meir learned both by Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael. And as we're going to see in a different order. The Tanya, Rabbi Meir, Kishayitzi Eitzel Rabbi Yishmael, when I was by Rabbi Yishmael, Hayisi Matel Kankantum L'Torchad Hayoy. Kankantum was some type of chemical that you'd put in ink and it would make it, the word, you couldn't erase it. Is the word indelible? Is that the correct word? You can't, unerasable.
Indelible, yeah.
Indelible, okay. So this kankantum.
Yeah, where's Tiny? Ask Tiny.
Tiny's not here.
This is up his alley, Mr. Printer.
He's not here. He's not here and Moshe's not here. Okay, anyway. And he didn't say anything to me. In other words, it's mashma, it's okay to put kankantum in ink. And we'll see the problem in a minute. However, that's when I was by Rabbi Yishmael. Kishebasi etzel Rabbi Akiva asru alai. He asked it to me. Now, two things. Who was he learning by first? Rabbi Yishmael. Who asked it? Rabbi Akiva. Guys, order is important. First Rabbi Yishmael, psak. Rabbi Akiva said it's asa. Ini is really asa. Rabbi Yehuda Mishmuel Mishum Reb Meir. Kishayisi loimet etzel Rabbi Akiva. When I was learning by Rabbi Akiva, I put this ingredient in the dayoy. He never said anything to me. What's your malacha? I'm a cipher. So again, order. Who was he learning by first? Rabbi Akiva. He put kankantum in. What did Rabbi Akiva say? Nothing. So you got two kashas, guys. One, who did he learn by first? And Sveitens, who asked the kankantim? In the first lashon, it was Rabbi Akiva, and in the second lashon, Rabbi Akiva did not answer it. Now, listen to this conversation that doesn't make any sense. So, Rabbi Yishmael asked Rabbi Meir, my melachta, b'ni, what is your malacha? So I told him, Lav Larni, I'm a cipher. So Amali said to me, b'ni, havizora b'melachta, be very careful in your malacha, shemalachta malacha shemayim hi. Shema ata mechasaroi sachas. If you're missing one letter, or you increase one letter, you're going to destroy the whole world. Says Rashi, fellas, the pasuk says, Vashem Elokim Emes, Im Techaser Aleph. If you take a word, the Aleph from the word Emes, I'm not going to say it, but look what it spells out. Lo Yaleinu, right? You take away the Aleph from Emes, the word is not, it sounds like you're machrim the world. That's if you take away a letter. Hashem spoke. What happens? You put a vav, and they spoke. Mashma that there's more than one God. So you could be, one letter can go ahead and be machrim the whole world. It can destroy everything. So you see, you got to be very careful. Okay, so he put in Kankantum. He asks him what his job is. He tells him that what? I'm a cipher. And he doesn't say anything about the Kankantum. And then he says, you know what? Gotta be careful. What does he answer? I answered him, Davar Yeshli, the Kankantum Shemoy, Shanimatul Tochadayoy. Amali Vichimatil mit Kantum Tochadayoy. How could you put it in? Well, the Kasav, the Torah says by the Parsha of Slaita, you should write down the Parsha. Umacha, and you should erase it. You won't be able to erase it if you put it in the Dayoy, you put it in the Kankantum. So now, listen to this conversation. What do you do for a living? I'm a cipher. Be very careful. You could destroy the world. You could destroy the world. That's what he tells him. What does he answer him? He says, don't worry, I put Kankantum in the ink. Well, you didn't answer the question. So Fred, what did Rabbi Shmuel tell him? And what did Rabbi answer? Says, Hachi Kamalei. Here's what he told him. Loimi boy b'chaseres to be seres, says Rabbi Meir to Rabbi Shmuel. Don't worry about a letter missing or a letter added. The light ta'ina, I don't make mistakes. The bucky I know because I'm an expert. Elafilu mechish lizvuv nami. Even to worry about an oinus, something that's out of my hands. So, for example, if a fly would land on the wet ink, Vilma Osi v'Yosef Atage the Dalid. He's going to land on the corner of the Dalid, umachichle, and the body of the fly will absorb the little part of the Dalid, umashval aresh, and it'll make the Dalid into a resh. You take the top of the Dalid, you take a little bit off, it becomes a resh. So I wrote a Dalid. I didn't make a mistake. But you have an oinus, the bird's going to fly in, a fly is going to fly in. Davar echad yeshli v'kankantim shmo. Since it's indelible, even if the fly lands, he won't be able to erase it. Okay, so the bottom line is, it's geschmack as anything. The conversation was, you asked me, you're a lavler, you warned me about being careful, you can destroy the world. I answered you, what? Don't worry about destroying the world. I am an expert. And even something that would take away from my expertise because it's not in my hand. A fly, I put Kankantum in. The fly is a non-player. It's not going to go ahead and make a difference. Bottom line is, guys, you got two kashas. Let's go back.
Isn't this fakert? Isn't this? It's fakert. It's this is fakert. I mean, don't put in the Kankantum so you can make a change if you have to.
If you put in Kankantum, it won't erase.
That's the problem.
Make a change. You won't have to make a change. The fly doesn't land. It doesn't take away anything. The dollar remains a dollar. The dollar remains a dollar.
Like it dries immediately. I hear what you're saying. Okay.
Now there was two problems. One, who did he learn by first? And two, it's mashma in the first lashon Rabbi Akiva asked the Kankantim, and the second lashon he mated it. It was Rabbi Shmuel who asked it. So Fred the Gemara, Kol Mokom, you have a question. You have Kasha what? Shima Shashima, who is the Mishama first? And Kasha Asra, who didn't allow Kankantim. So Vishlei Mishima Shashima Vishlei Kasha, Meikara Asra Kamed Rabbi Akiva. Initially, Rabbi came to Rabbi Akiva. He wasn't able to understand Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was too sharp. He was too deep for him. He wasn't well prepared. So what did he do? He left Rabbi Akiva and Asla Kamed Rabbi Shmuel v'Gama Gemara, and he got straight all the Mishnayos and all the Svaris. And then V'Hada Asla Kamed Rabbi Akiva. Then he was ready to go to Rabbi Akiva. The Savas Svara. Ela Asra Kasha, who asked the Kankantim. On that we have a question. Where says Einachlami Kasha? That's fair. Okay, very good. So we're in the middle of a great story. Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Meir Hoya Omer, L'chol matilim kankantim, l'toicha dayoy, chutz mi parshas Saita. Says Rabbi Yehuda, the name of Rabbi Meir, if you're writing Parshas Nasai, when you get to the Parsha of Saita, even though the whole Torah you're putting in this chemical, you don't put it in there. Mashma, why don't you put it in there? Because you may need to erase that for a Saita. Rabbi Yaakov Omer Mishmai, Rabbi Yaakov says in the name of Rabbi Meir, chutz mi Parshas Saita sheba migdash. In this Torah in the Beis HaMikdash you put in, but any other Torah you can't put in. My binayu, Amrav Yirmiyah, limchak le'minat Torah it could be nayu. Whether you could be moichik from the Torah if it's necessary. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you can be moichik from the Torah. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you could be moichik from the Torah, and therefore what you would go ahead and not put in dayoy. According to Rabbi Meir, according to Rabbi Yaakov, you can't be moichik from the Torah, and therefore you put the kankantim in, and that's the nafkamina. V'hani tanoi, the machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yaakov is kihani tanoi. The same machlokes is this tanoim. The Tanya, ein megilasa kasher lahashkas v'saita. Let's say a woman named Spinzer shows up. They wrote a Megillah for Saita, and right before the Megillah, before they erased the Megillah, she went ahead and says, I don't want to drink, I'm guilty. So now you have an extra Megillah. The next day, a woman names Harriet shows up, right? And they say, well, great, we have one written for Spinzer. Can you use it or not? Says the Gemara, says the first Tana, ein Megillah kasher lahashkas b'saita acheres. The one that was written for Spinzer can't be used for Harriet. Rav Achai bar Yoshia Amar, Megilta kasher lahashkas b'saita acheres. She could. So l'chayra, this machlokes over here is the same machlokes as before. The Tana Kama over here who says that you can't use it. That's the Tana who says that by kankantum. That's by kankantum. That's in Yaakov. You could put in the kankantum because you can't use it. And according to Mandi Omar, Rav Yehuda, who says you don't put the kankantum in this because you could use it, he would be Rav Achai bar Yoshia. Now, this is a great trivia question. If anyone can answer this question, I'll give you $10. Who was Rav Achai bar Yoshia? We met him at the end of the Masechta Shabbos. Dun 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 dun. You want to know who he is? Do you remember Rav Nachman had the guys digging and they dug up a keva, and the keva he snorted at him and he got nervous, and then Rav Nachman invited him to the house. Guys, that was Rav Achai bar Yoshia. Take a look when you get a chance. Kufnan Beis Amid Beis. You got to know your names.
That people for 5,000.
Baruch Hashem for Dirshu. Anyway, says the Gemara Vaita. So, Rav Achai, so very geschmack. Amar Papa, Dil Maloihi. Fellas, I can say the machlokes is not a machlokes Tanoim. Maybe Loihi. Ad kan like come Tanakama, the Tanakama, Ad kan Hasam, Elakiven the Inkik L'Shem Rachel, Sulei Hodger Minkik L'Shem Leah. In other words, I wrote it for Sprinza, I can't use it for Harriet. Avalgabe Torah, the Stoma Michtava. Torah wasn't written for a particular person. Good, it wasn't written Lishma, but maybe Stam would be good. Guys, we always explain it like this. There's three madregas. There's Shaloi Lishma, there's Lishma, and there's Stam. There's a middle madrega, there's Parav. So you wanted to say that Milachix and Fleishiks are, if you wrote it for Milachix, you can't use it for Fleishik. But Parav you could use. So since the Torah was written Stam, maybe you could use it. So you're not locked into saying that the Mandi Omar that would allow, over here would not allow. So Hachanami the Machkinon. Maybe you would. Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak Dil Maloihi, the other way around. I'd kind of like Amar Rav Achai bar Yoshia, Hasam over there, that you could use it. In other words, why could I use the one that was written for Sprinza? Why could I use it for what? For Harriet? Is Ela de Ichtav Mil L'Shem Saita. It was written not Lishma, but it was written L'Shem Sota. It was written for that Inyan. Avalgabe Torah, when it was written the Torah, the Islamic, that it was written to learn from, Ksiva Hachanami Loimachkinon. Maybe you don't. So either way, according to Enman the Amar, you're not locked into saying that it's a machlokes Tanoim. So again, Kankantum, can you use it? Parshas Saita, not machlokes Tanoim. But the second one, whether it has to be written Lishma or not, that is not necessarily the same machlokes. It can be written in a different way. Fred the Gemara, for Leslie Rav Achai bar Yoshia Hadit Nan, Rav Achai bar Yoshia, is that not the Hadit Nan? We learned in the Mishnah, Mashma, that you need Lishma. Again, guys, Rav Achai bar Yoshia, besides the guy being dug up, is the one who said, since it was written for Shpinza, you still could use it for Harriet. You still could use it. Don't you do the Shema? It says, Kosav get Lagarish Asishtayom in base. If the guy wrote a get to divorce his wife, the Nimlach, he changed his mind. Umatza ben Iroi, he found a person in the city. V'omar Shmecha Kishmi, your name is like my name. But Shemishta, your wife is like my wife. Let's say hypothetically your name is Benjamin and you're married to a Sarah. It happens, right? Pasul Lagarish, boy, you puzzle to go ahead about it and use that get. Why? Because it's not Lishma. So L'chaira, the Gemara wants a tzush, they'll get to Saita. So how could Rav Achabar Yoshia allow a get written for Shpinza to be used for Harriet? And from Rav Yashta, Hasam v'kasav law. By get, it says v'kasav law ksiv. Be'inin k'siv l'shma. It has to be written l'shma. Hacha v'asa law ksiv. By the site, it says, and you should do for her. What does the do for her mean? Be'inin asiyah l'shma. Asiyah dida is mechikahi. It has to be mochat l'shma. It has to be mochat for Shprinza. It has to be mochat for Harriet. But it doesn't have to be written for Harriet. Therefore, Rav Achabar Yoshia says, in fact, you could go ahead, use a Megillah Saita written for Shprinza to be used for Harriet. Because the only thing that has to be Lishma is the actual Mechika. Any questions till now? We're good. Okay. Next piece of Gemara is Gavaldik. Rav Achabar Chanina. Golei v'yidu l'fnei misha amar b'ayol olam. It's golei v'yiduya in front of the Rebbeinu Shleilim, the one who said, the Hayo Olam. Listen to this. She'ein b'doirei shel Rameya k'maisai. There was no one in the generation of Rameya like him. Rameya was the greatest in his generation. You think about it, guys, Rameya was one of the 5 Talmidim in the Gemara in Yomi who survived the 24,000. They died, and then Rabbi Akiva went from the south to the north. He went looking, and he found 5 Talmidim, Rabbi Shua Bar Yochai, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yehuda, and he found the Rabbi Rameya. And of all those people, even Rabbi Shua Bar Yochai, Rameya was the God Ladar. The Gemara has been testifying that Kadosh Baruch Hu says there was no one in his generation like Rameya. Question: so why wasn't the halacha like Rameya? Why wasn't the halacha like Rameya? Because his chaverim were not able to fully understand his logic. Why? He was so logical, fellas. He could find time in either way. He'd say something's tamei, and even though it's tar, he said it's tamei, umar lapanim, and they'd all agree. In other words, he would show them proofs. Al tar tamei. Conversely, he would the other way. He would say on tar tamei, umar lapanim. So memela to halacha to follow, you have to have one kav. It seems to be you have to have one line of reasoning. Rameya was so great, he was able to go directionally, and therefore the halacha is not him because his talmidim could follow. Tana loy Rameya shemo. His name wasn't Rameya. Ella Rebbe Nehoroi Shemo. His name was Rebbe Nehoroi. His real name was Rebbe Nehoroi. Now there's a Girsa Rebbe Mesha, which makes a lot more sense. That really his name was Rebbe Mesha. Because, guys, Nehoroi means light up. Meya means light up. So why would they change his name? No, right? It's the same name. His name was Dov and they called him Bear. His name was Herish and they called him Tzvi. The names that are synonymous. So why would they go ahead and change his name? So the Girsa here is very good of Mesha. That would make a lot of sense. He would light up people. Now, the next piece of Gemara is a new person. It's not the same. It can't possibly be the same because it makes no sense. I'll show you why in a second. Now, this is not Reb Meir. It's going on a different person. Well, it's a similar type of thing where he had a different name. El Reb Nechemia Shmo. His name was Reb Nechemia. The Imrile, others say Reb Elazar ben Arach Shemai. His name was Elazar ben Arach. Why was he called Nehoroi? If his name was Reb Elazar ben Arach or Nechemia, Sheminar Eini Chacham Malacha. He would light up in halacha. Guys, I'll prove to you it's a new Gemara. Listen to me. You'll understand this. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had 5 Talmidim. Rabbi Elazar ben Horkenis, right? He had 5 Talmidim. Rabbi Elazar ben Horkenis and Rabbi Elazar ben Arach were 2 of those 5. Rabbi Elazar ben Horkenis was the Rebbe of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was the Rebbe of Reb Meir, right? So how could Reb Meir be Rabbi Elazar ben Arach? Rabbi Elazar ben Arach was a contemporary of Rabbi Eliezer, who was the Rebbe of Rabbi Akiva. So obviously this is a new Nahoroi. It's a new person, right? So and we just playing by the same name game. By Meya it was Meisha, we changed it to Meya. By Balaz ben Arach, we changed it to Rav Noroi because he went ahead and lit up everyone's life. Omar Rebbe, Hi the Mechadina Mecharve. This is a very famous Gemara. Says Rebbe, that I'm sharper than my friends. Why am I sharper than my friends? The Chazise Reb Meya me'achurai. Because I saw the back of Reb Meya. I saw the back of Reb Meya. Ve'ilu Chazisi mikamei. And if I would have seen the front of Reb Meya, Havi Mechadinon and Tfei, I'd even be sharper. So I have a piece here I want to share with you. I'm going to find it. I'm going to try to get it on the screen. Are we there? I can't see. Guys.
Yeah, we got it.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now take a look. I'm going to read along. This is from the Sefer Torah Chaim. I've brought it in the past. The Chazisel Reb Meya me'achurai. I saw Reb Meya from the back. Pirish Rashi. Yoshev b'shurav achrav. He was sitting behind him in a row. Ubi Yushalmi Isya. The Rebbe loy roes Reb Meya meimav. Rebbe never saw Reb Meya in his life. Elachad. Zimna, one time. He only saw him one time in his life, and he only saw his back. It happened that he saw him one time. That's why he was sharper. He was zeicher to see him from his back that one time. Why is it so special? The Shechina was Shoira on Reb Meya. Kidimashma b'Medrash Rabbah b'Parsha Saita. Shahay Reb Meya Tsoife b'Ruach HaKodesh. Reb Meya saw, he gazed b'Ruach HaKodesh. Ulakach Kalmi shezachal eroisai. Anyone who was zeicher to see Reb Meya nimshach aleha shefa Ruach HaKodesh. It was drawn to him a flow, a shower of Ruach HaKodesh. We find the same thing by David. When the Navi describes David, fellas, it says he was admoini im yefei einayim v'toiv roi. So the seculars say he was good looking. Toiv roi, he was good to look at. Yomru Chazal, what do you mean he was good to look at? Sheroyas pnei David, anyone who saw David's face, hayamoyel lezichroim, it would help his memory. Ulakach siv, David writes in Tehillim, in Kuf Yutes, Pasuk Ayin Dalid, Yireyecha, those who fear you, Yeruni, they look at me, v'yismachu, and they're happy. You know why they look at me and they're happy? Because they remember their Torah. Hahipuch mistakel b'pnei Russia, the opposite who someone looks at the face of a Russia. Shekol mistakel boy, anyone who looks at a Russia, eine shechloi, chaos, their eyes go dim. Mishum the ruach hatuma shoyra alav. V'mistakel boy nimshach mitumasai. And anyone looks at it, will be drawn to this Tumah alav, umishtabesh, and it'll be ruined. Says the Torah Chaim something beautiful thing. The Ruach HaKodesh that was Shefa from the Heilig Ketana Reb Meya, it helped Rebbe just looking at his back. And you imagine if I would have seen his face? Can you imagine if I would have seen his face, what it would have been? My son, we was Zaycha, those people who were in the share, remember Rav Moshe Maruch. Rav Moshe Maruch was a Vilna Talmud. He was a Litvish Vilna Talmud. He stayed with the Mir Yeshiva. He was totally blind. And he would come to share and sit next to me. And my son Yitzi was a little boy. He'd come to the Ashkama Minyan, and I'd take him home. And Yitzi would walk with him. And I said, Rav Moshe, give a bracha. And he'd give a bracha. And you know what he'd tell him? No, you're getting a bracha from a person who saw Rav Chaim Oiza. That was his bracha. No, you're getting a bracha from someone who saw Rav Chaim Oiza. His life was different because he saw Rav Chaim Oiza. His life was different. My Rebbe Zatzal used to tell me, Leza, ich hab gekent alta Menschen in Vilna, was I Zaydis hat gesehen de Gra. I knew old people in Vilna who Zaydis saw the Vilna going. The Hemshich, they're able to say they saw somebody like that. And I always tell you, anything I am and anything I'm able to give to you is only because I was lucky to see my Rebbe. Rav Schwab tells a story about he spent Zoicha one time, his Zoicha to spend one Shabbos with the Chavetz Chaim in his life and the difference it made in his life. Even one time. And anyone who saw Rav Moshe, you saw Rav Moshe, Malach Elakim Chaim if you was Zeicha to see Rav Moshe. And if you want Zeicha, I always tell my girls in school, you don't know what you were missing. You don't know what you're missing. You can understand this beautiful Teres Chaim, even in our level, so many years later, you see the Ruach HaKodesh is shayra on these people. I always say, you look at Rav Chaim Kanievsky, you don't get to look like that spending your life bowling. It's only someone who immersed in Torah his whole life, you see that. So beautiful. The Ruach HaKodesh was shayra upon him. He saw his back. Can you imagine what he saw his front? And Mustama, this is linked to the pasuk in Kisisa, where Kadosh Baruch Hu went ahead and passed by, and the Gemara in Brachos tells us Moshe Rabbeinu saw his Kesher Shel Tefillin. You're not able to see Kadosh Baruch Hu's front and live, but the back of the tefillin he could see, and that's why Moshe Rabbeinu was the arpon of Moshe was on his face. The Peladik Teres Chaim to explain a beautiful Gemara, guys. Says weiter. If I would have seen his face, and that based upon the Teres Chaim, the explanation now is beautiful. Talmud Hoyel Reb Meir is the Talmud Reb Meir. And Sumchis Shema, his famous Talmud Sumchis, he's buried next to Reb Meir. You go to Tveria, he's buried right next to him. I'll call David V'David Shal Tuma, Arba Shemani Taimei Tuma. He was able to explain 48 reasons for Tuma, but I'll call David Devar Shal Taira, Arba Shemani Taimei Taira. Tana Talmud Vasik Chayi B'Yavne, there was a Talmud expert, Talmud Yavne, of Reb Meir, Shayi Metaris, a Sheretz, B'Meir B'Chamishim Taimim. He would find 150 reasons to Metaris Sheretz. The Tosfos says it doesn't mean to Metarit because different halachas of the Sheretz will go ahead and be changed as a result. Ravina, Anodin says Ravina, I'll take a stab at it. I'll show you a reason to be Metaris Sheretz. Vatarenu. Umar Nachash Shememis, Umar Betuma, a Nachash of venomous snakes that kills so many. It kills the veil, it kills animals, it kills people, and increases Tuma. Tahar, yet the Nachash himself is Tahar. Sheretz she'ein meimis, the shemis that doesn't kill anybody, umar betuma like kol shekain that it should be tahar. So the chari has a good kal v'chaymer, right? To be mitar sheretz. V'loihi, it's not a good kal v'chaymer. Ma'isa koitz ba'al makavit. What's the tumah? The snake doesn't create the tumah. The snake is a koitz. It has a fang. It kills the person. It's the halacha of tumah that creates it. It's not the snake that creates it. The kal v'chaymer ravina is not a good kal v'chaymer. Amra Baba Amishmul. Sholish shanim nechlu b'shayim b'sil. 3 years, Beis Shammai only argued. Halalu Om Malacha K'Maisenu, Halalu Om Malacha K'Maisenu. Each one said Allah is like each individual. Yotze Baskel, but the Baskel came out and said, Elu Divrei Kem Chayim Hein, Malacha K'Maisenu. Guys, this is quoted throughout Shas. I'm going to go through it one more time, so you'll know this for the rest of your lives. This Baskel is quoted throughout Shas. They argued, Elu Divrei Kem Chayim, meaning they're both true. They're both true. They're both, when it comes to using the laws of the Gimel Midos and using the way the Torah is interpreted, Beis Shammai is right and Beis Hillel is right. Elu divrei Kem Chayim. Guys, you might remember we had in Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer the Milah, we said in the town of Rebbe Eliezer, they would go ahead on Shabbos, make the knife, and no one ever died before the Zman. Why? And in the place of Rebbe Yosef Galili, they ate a peacock's head in milk because there they passed in Bas V'Chalav. And we saw the Chachma Shlomo that said, Elu Divrei Kem Chayim. They're both right. So in the place of that particular Tana who paskin that way, they would do according to that because they're both right. Good? So now, the Hein halacha nonetheless, but halacha Beis Hillel, despite the Baskel comes out and says the halacha is like Hillel. It had nothing to do with the lumdus. It had nothing to do with the quality of his learning. The reason was midas. If they said noichin ve'aluvim, because they were noicha, they were easygoing with each other, aluvim, and they were just easy. They treated each other with great respect. He learned, still learned his own words and the words of Beis Shammai. Not only did he mention both, throughout Shas, we always have Beis Shammai quoted first, even though the Allah is like Beis Hillel. Who has sitting the majority of his body in the sukkah, and the shulchan in the house. Beis Shammai Paistan, it's not that share is not large enough. Beis Hillel machshirin. Amalem Beishamai, no, Misham Raya is not right from there. Achein Amru Lady, even told Rabbi Yochanan and Charanis, and Kacha Yisin Oil, if this is the way you would know, you're like Chianti Mitzvah Sukkah Mecha. Lamdecha Shekol Amash Palatzma Hakadosh Baruch Hu Magbio. Anyone who goes ahead and lowers himself, Hakadosh Baruch Hu goes ahead and elevates him. V'chol Magbia Atzmo, and anyone who goes ahead and acts in the guy with the away, Hakadosh Baruch Hu Mashpil. Guys, there's a reason why the Torah picks out the Ish Moshe of Ona Ma'od Mekol Moshe Ben Adama. The one meat that the Torah mentioned was Anava. You see that it's so crucial. In order to be, that was the Anivus of Moshe that went ahead and got us what and elevated Moshe. It was his Anivus. Kol HaMachzor Al-Gedula, anyone who goes after Gedula Merechas, it's going to go ahead and run away from him. V'chol Barech Min HaGedula Machzeres Achrav. V'chol HaDoichik Es HaShah, anyone who tries to bring about his life change, he pushes it. Shah Doichai. V'chol HaNidcha, you do your best, and you leave back and say, Shah, you made this light. You're supposed to get it, you'll get it. You do your best, but up to a point. 2.5 years they argue. Better that a person not be born. Listen to this conversation, which I never understood in my life. Right? They're arguing about a moot point because you're born, right? So anyway, what? So here, better to be born than not be born. Right? The halal one, mother said, better to be born and not be born. Nimnu, the Gomru, they've accounted and they concluded that what? Better to go ahead and not be born than be born. But achshav shenivra, now that you're born, you fashface b'maisav, go ahead and look at your past actions to be chayzer b'tshuva. V'milah, others say yimashve b'maisav, future actions to make sure that what? You go ahead and do things correctly. You go ahead and don't make a cheshbon or schar mitzvah keneged hefsed aveira, and so on and so forth. So there's a beautiful Vilna going here, guys. Listen to this going. According to most Sfarim, there hasn't been a new neshama since Bayis Rishon. In other words, anyone that's listening to the Zoom account right now is part of a previous Gilgal. This Gilgal, we're part of a previous Gilgal. We're not original. We're not originals, right? And the purpose of Gilgal is to be mitaken the neshama of the previous time. It was, in other words, the neshama has to go back to Hashem perfect. And until that perfection is attained, it has to go through what we call a series of Gilgulim. Now, the question is, how do you know what you're supposed to work on to go ahead and substantiate your existence in this world? How do you know? And the only way to know is something that's hard for you. If you get angry easy, then you have to work on anger because you're here to correct that. If you're cheap and you find it hard to part with your money, then you have to be more generous, more benevolent. That's the reason you're here. This is the way the Vilna Gaon explains this Gemara. Guys, look at this Gemara. It's gorgeous now. Says the Gemara, Nimnu v'gamru la'adam shlei noyach loy la'adam shlei nivra. Better that you shouldn't have been born. Yosem ishenivra. What do you mean better that you shouldn't have been born? After all, I was here before. I was here already. I don't have to come back. Why am I here? I don't know, right? Ella, what should you do? Achsha shenivra. Now that you're here in this world, you fashmeis b'maisav. Look into your actions, and now you'll know why you're here. Kedai to sit from 10 o'clock on a Motzei Shabbos to hear this. How great is that for Pshat, guys? Peladik Pshat. Peladik. You don't know why you're here. Guess what? Better that you're not born. Because why? You're Megalgal the second time around, maybe a third time around, maybe a fourth time around. But now that you're here, find out why you're here. You fashmis myself, and then you'll know what to be mitaking. I wish you all a great evening.
I heard Rabbi Fran say on this, and you're going to keep coming back until you get it right.